Welcome to Fractional Frequency, our take on talent, people trends, and the reality of building up businesses in an economy that keeps rewriting the rules. I'm Amy Crook, founder of Stratavis.
And I'm Erin Totis, Managing Director of Talent Delivery, which basically means I live in the universe of finding the right people to make an impact for our clients fast.
Around here, we talk about the real side of HR and talent, what works, what absolutely doesn't, and how to build teams that can carry a business, not drag it down.
We'll break down trends, share the behind the scenes of scaling a consultancy from zero, and probably overshare a little because that's where the good lessons live.
So whether you're building, hiring, leading, or just trying to keep your company profitable, you're in the right place.
This is Fractional Frequency. Let's get to it.
Hi, Erin. Oh, did we just talk at the same time?
We did. I wasn't sure if you were going first or not.
Oh. That's a great intro. A great start.
Well, we might as well keep on rolling.
We are we're definitely on our A game this evening, but I am so excited to reintroduce and re-welcome Mike Reading to the show. Mike is the founder and CEO of Regen Design Labs, and we sat down and had a conversation with Mike a couple of months ago and had to have him back on to revisit and dive a little bit deeper into a few topics. Mike and team have developed an AI co-pilot tool that helps leadership teams strengthen clarity and judgment inside real work before execution gets expensive. An active member of Founder Labs and cohorts, we are so happy to have him back. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Welcome back. It's so good to have you back. And I don't think we've gone a week without talking since we met you the last time. So it's definitely cool to continue following your journey, and we're still loving using your tool and super excited to dig a little deeper into this space of AI in the workforce in the year 2026.
Me too. When you said we hadn't gone a week without talking to me, I didn't know if that was going to be a good thing or a bad thing. So I'm glad we landed on that one.
Good. And let's kick off and talk a little bit about this sort of this evolution that we're seeing and hearing all about, this sort of transition from almost thinking to prompting, if you will. I feel like every time this topic comes up in conversation, there's comments about just the pace of change, and so really excited to pick your brain about that. So, Mike, in recent months, where have you seen AI genuinely improve work quality?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of break down the work stream into four components: input, decision, action, result. And so something I know it gets more nuanced and you could split it up, but where I've seen it really thrive is in those areas of input and of action. So we are overwhelmed with communication, we're overwhelmed with big data and making some correlations, some themes, being able to process that information quickly. AI has just made that a lot easier. I don't know if it's made it quieter, but I was able to consume and condense and summarize a lot more of that information to help give a launching pad. And then in realm of execution, some of those lower level tasks that weren't as complex or kind of something that kickstarts your creative thinking, your strategic planning, it helps kind of take that raw material, piece it together. That's something that you can kind of begin to work and mold, like, clay in that sense. So I've seen it do a lot of great things in those areas, personally, just from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I feel that, certainly in a number of the things that we do on repeat, the thing that comes to mind, first is some of our social content. It's like the kind of thing that we have to do every single week to stay relevant and stay out in front of our audiences. And sometimes I'm sat there with writer's block or Amy sat there with writer's block thinking about, what should we shine a spotlight on this week? And so, having those tools to turn to help just begin the ideation process and get through that is incredible.
Yeah, I use that a lot too. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
To move fast. And so, you spend a lot of time, Mike, in, working on, thinking patterns and how AI is complementing that and maybe shifting that in people. Are people using AI to sharpen their thinking or to avoid it?
Yes. I think
Yes.
yes, it just
All of the
depends. Yeah. So, definitely to sharpen their thinking and to avoid it. I think right now we're looking at the ways that either passively or actively people are avoiding thought because of AI. There's a couple of terms I've heard lately. One is cognitive surrender. It's from a research paper where people were working with AI in different groups, but in scenarios where AI was wrong, people were right. They still chose to outsource their thinking and judgment to trust AI answers, even if they were incorrect, because their assumption was that AI is superior because it's AI, right? And so they find the idea of cognitive surrender, where we go against our own thinking and our own judgment passively because we just assume it's superior. And so in that sense, it kind of, avoid our thinking because we feel like it's inferior. But then the way we kind of use AI outside of work, it leaks into work too. There's another phrase I heard the other day, cognitive delegation. I guess everyone wants to use a lot of syllables, but it's the idea, when you sit down to do something outside of work, you go into chat or Claude or whatever, and you say, help me think about this, help me prioritize this, help me, kind of delegate pieces of your labor in the day-to-day life. You bring that same mentality of help me do this to AI or into your work with AI, and before you know it, the starting point of thought moves outside the person to the tool, and it becomes the default mode that now you're quietly kind of defaulting your thought to something first, and then you just take it and you execute it. So I definitely think that that's common, but there are those that are also using AI as a way to kind of mirror your thoughts. Two phrases I rely on a lot is pay attention to your attention and think about your thinking. So it kind of helps you, see what assumptions you're bringing in that aren't correct, where you're placing your attention, what you're missing, the signal amongst the noise, and then to think about your thinking. Like, are you bringing in your own, thoughting patterns that are just a repeat of the past? And does that fit the situation? And sometimes we have to kind of take a moment to say, am I being reactive or am I being purposeful in the way I'm forming my decisions?
Mm.
I love the think about your thinking, pay attention to your attention. I think, that's a really great reminder for anyone listening, and it can be digging into these tools and leveraging them for thought and for an assist, I think can be a slippery slope. I've heard a lot of conversation about that just in the market over the last few months, especially. Mike, when you're sort of assessing a situation or assessing a person's thinking, what signals tell you that that person might be relying too heavily on external answers?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if this is unique to AI or just in general. First of all, I think we've been outsourcing our thinking long before AI came to the scene. I think it just makes it more accessible. But whether it be to top-down structures, kind of performance-driven behaviors that we're supposed to comply, but the idea I look at is when you're like your performance reviews, your weekly one-on-ones, when you're focusing more on activity versus achievement, what I got accomplished versus what impact I had, what outcome was made, and it takes on a form of task management. That's for me, I see as a big indicator, whether AI is used or not, where you've kind of outsourced your thinking and you're just purely, kind of the caricature of high performance where you're optimized and efficient. You don't know what you're doing, but you've done a lot of it. And so when you come to the table with, here's all that I've done activity wise, and you don't really know what that's achieved in terms of business effectiveness and outcomes, then you've outsourced your thought to anything along the way, whether it be AI or something else. So in general, that's the thing I pay attention to when listening to people talk about the work they do.
Yeah, that's a good call out.
Yeah,
You
I think that's an interesting, an interesting point that that's been happening long before AI. I think I've certainly been in conversations where maybe starting, I'd say probably like 5, 6 years ago, even where the theme started to shift away from activity to impact,
Yeah.
and activity to productivity, and starting to get really clear about the delineation between those things. So that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Mike, your background is in adult learning, and I'm sort of curious for you to peel back another related topic for us a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about judgment? How does judgment develop, and where can that process be interrupted at critical points?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll have to nerd out on you for a little bit here.
It's
So
over it.
I'm a big fan of developmental psychology. It is a thing. But Carol Dweck, anyway, but so they would talk about, the unique capacities that humans have, that people have for, to actualize our potential in a system to make, our ideas into action are really three capacities. It's scope of consideration, locus of control, and personal agency. So when you get to scope of consideration, is you want to look at, is it this external scope of not just self, not just ego, not just your own individual or group achievement, but self and system. You're aware of how your actions impact the larger system you're a part of and working in. And so when you're making decisions, you're able to have this external scope beyond just your momentary task. The next is the internal locus of control, where you don't believe that things are outside of your control, outside of your power, but you do have a say, you do have the ability to move and to judge and to make calls, to make decisions that matter, and that you have what it takes, that you're enough. And then last is personal agency, that actual freedom to shape the work around what you need it to look to make the outcome be achieved versus kind of being a slave to the process that becomes kind of a cold procedure. So when we talk about what makes the qualities and capacities that make judgment possible, it is people looking at a problem, being able to exercise this external scope of consideration outside of their own little task, this internal locus of control where they feel empowered and have the capacity and have what it takes to meet that moment with their own clarity and judgment. And then the personal agency to make the moves and shape the work and the processes to get that outcome achieved and that result finished. And what interrupts the process would be the inverse of that, where you're outsourcing your locus of control like to AI, and your scope of consideration kind of shrinks into just what this tool tells me. And personal agency too, it just sits to where like, okay, this thing executes for me. So all of a sudden you're powerless, thoughtless, and scopeless in the work that you do.
Yeah. But I think there's also, if as I'm listening to that, there's so much opportunity for AI tools to play a supportive role, particularly in helping to expand your scope of influence and understanding as you consider a problem. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's something that I really focused on. Not that it's about my tool per se, but that's where I wanted it to really do, is to expand and really mirror back, mirrors on capacity and context, to where it really does help one see their own scope of consideration, locus of control, and personal agency, and how do you exercise that with stakeholders and the value you're creating, and the quality of thought and decision making you're bringing to a moment. So it kind of empowers you to realize that you have the capacity, and your context is its own sort of living curriculum, and that it has everything you need for the answer in that moment. It's not going to be in a best list out there on LinkedIn feed somewhere. It's actually going to be found in the moment if you can just pay attention to your attention and think about your thinking long enough just to find it.
Yeah, I think so. It's such good thoughts that, I mean, it's like this tool comes along and everyone forgets that all the experience and the journeys that they've been on to get the knowledge, to get into the position that they're in, and they just trust something that's spat out at them. And it's really clear to see in spaces that are like, legal or policy or anything like that, because it makes mistakes all the time. And so, yes, it's easier to not to wear a mistake that's like creatively balanced, but you need to put the information into context. It's not going to do that for you yet.
Yes, right. Probably soon, but not now. No, I'm joking.
And that kind of leads me to a question, actually, is like, where does AI act as your thinking partner versus like replacing even like a leadership role?
So I think that's a good question. I'll let Aaron take that one first. No, no, where it becomes like a replacement versus a leadership role. I mean, I think that's where you do begin to kind of plug and play. I prompt, it gives an answer, and then I execute it. And I think that the threat is not in the tool itself. Quite frankly, I think and I may change my mind later, but I think so lots of times it's in the culture in which you're working, that is
Mm,
speed and optimization are the ultimate status symbols and things that are celebrated and things that are financially rewarded, then you don't have time to think. You just are reacting. And so the faster you make decisions, there's this false idea of, fast decisions fail forward. It's not really. Usually it's fast decisions scale quickly and then, oh shit, it
Yeah,
costs a lot of
yeah,
money to fix. And so I think it is really not even, it's less about the tool itself and your relationship with the tool and the permissions you have around you to expand your thinking that drives it more. Because this false sense of urgency that I think we sometimes have created, and it's not because it's that things change so fast. I mean, they do, but also I think we're just all about we're about data, 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 speed, 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 and
yeah,
those kind of force us into this false sense of it's overly complex, and maybe sometimes we've kind of created our own prison doing
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that just like sparks a couple things for me is like one, like what happened in the relationships that people have with their leadership that this this is a better option than talking it through. And I think a couple of things is like remote culture, right? Like you're alone. And so it's not as easy to have a conversation with somebody across the desk, like maybe you would have had if you were in the office a couple days a week. But then did did strong leaders get lazy and just not invest in the development piece of people, like to keep their critical thinking skills growing? Did that happen? I don't know.
I don't know. I've been thinking about that too, weirdly enough, because you've seen like the 2030 skills that we all need to be,
Mhm.
to make it in business. And a lot of those are in critical thinking, systems thinking, being
Mhm.
adaptable and flexible. So I think probably for where I kind of see this happening is it's not as if we don't give them tons of content and online courses and catalogs to go learn
But
critical
who's doing
thinking.
that? Who's doing that? No one's doing that.
No one's doing well. I mean, like I remember, like working in corporate, you had all these licenses you could go. You could even go to a 5-day workshop and you build bridges out of toothpicks. But then you go back into the real world and it gets lost in translation. And
Yeah.
it's not built into the work itself. I'm like, what would the toothpick bridge say about this moment? Yeah, and so really, it's like we have these classes thinking, well, they'll be able to bridge the gap or mind the gap themselves for my British friends. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Good nod. Good nod
yes.
to the cross the pond folks.
But yeah, we can't mind the gap because it's not, it takes you out of the context of work, puts you in kind of
Yeah.
this foreign fabricated stuff. And then it really is not taking place inside the work in real time. And I think development is only possible when it's embedded in real actual work.
It just, I'm having such horror flashbacks of so many like team building offsite days of like the plank of wood and you've only got two buckets and you've got to get across the I'm like, that's never come up, like
No, not yet.
of all the problems I've been tasked to solve, never has been getting across a field with a plank of wood and two buckets been one of them. So yeah,
Well, you need to go down
definitely.
to Arkansas then.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't do it like that in Chicago. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thought. Like, obviously, people are leaning into it, which makes sense. It is helpful. I use it all day, every day. And I worry, and I think we touched on this a little bit last time too, is I just worry that the brain is gonna like atrophy from not having to really think for itself and to be able to handle, a real conversation. Or, if you're working through a problem, I mean, uh, do you just all have to go away and grab your phone or your laptop and then like come back? Like, and it does miss so much context. I mean, I love AI so much. My company name, the branding, like it came up with everything in like 2 minutes. Like it was great.
Yeah.
Didn't need to like go to a designer or anything like that. It came up with everything and I was like, yeah, love it. Um, but I do think there's some challenges in business, in fact, a lot of them where you're either it's a human-centric problem that you're trying to solve, or your product is trying to appeal to people. So like you got to put a bit of human into the equation to make it make sense for people.
Yes.
So how do you personally like integrate AI into your decision-making process?
Oh, into my decision-making process. I think respect. See, I'm working.
Not
I'm
gonna have
learning.
language lessons. I'm not gonna do
I'm
education
learning.
lessons. I know, I know.
I'm start saying recognize with spelling with an S instead of a Z. I'll go all in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I again, I have formed this whole product tool thing was kind of by accident. I kind of created my own thinking tool to help that was rooted in living systems. So it did just turn my thinking back to me.
Yeah.
And instead of just giving me answers or doing the work for me,
Yeah.
it made me, if it just was this like literally a thinking partner that helped kind of reclaim my own unique clarity and my own judgment because I never lost connection with the work. In fact, it gave me connection to the work with the thought I was developing with the stakeholders that I was working with, from customers all the way to supply chain to investors, and then it helped me understand the kind of value that needed to be created in the moment because it just was helping me find what I already knew. But it's so easy to feel like you're not enough, or to think you don't have enough time, or just take some time that were undigested masses of information, that having something that kind of help digest things with. That's what I've done with my AI tool. And it's different because I've seen a lot, especially with working in Founder Studio, there's a lot of accelerators out there that says just lean on AI to help create your lean canvas and your narrative lean canvas. And there's this, you just give it a prompt and it spits out something that looks really nice. And so you just prompt it out and you have this false sense of confidence because of how it looks,
Mhm.
but you've lost your own connection with your work. And so you start to talk to them about their unique value proposition or their problem solution fit and all of that. And they can't really articulate it that well because they didn't spend enough time to struggle with it, to let it come from within. And there was that tension that they didn't have to experience, that creativity demands was never allowed because they went straight to the prompt and had this beautiful thing, and it made them feel like it was complete, but they had no connection with it, and it wasn't worth more than the sheet of paper it was printed on. Not
Yeah.
that it was printed on the sheet, but you know what I'm saying.
It's not, it's not worth the $3,000 Mac it
Exactly.
But it's such a good point, like that connection to what you're saying. It reminds me, there was one time earlier in my career, I had to do a presentation for the senior leadership team. And my leader at the time did not trust me to put together the material. And I was like, no, I got it. I got it. No, no, no. I'm going to put together the material, but you can present it. That was probably the hardest thing that I have ever had to do is take somebody else's words and somebody else's um point of view and try and repackage it as my own. It just didn't feel authentic. It was hard to get through. I mean, then the difference between like that particular scenario and AI is that, the more you use your tool of choice, the more it does get to know you, your voice, and how, and a little bit about how you think. But your tool takes it like to the next level because it's not trying to mimic you. The end result is you. It's much less around, okay, I've learned this, this, and this, so I'm going to, take these bits of information, put it all together, think this sounds like you, and here you go. Your tool really turns the question back to you to think about it from different angles until you get to um, an endpoint that feels authentic and it feels good, and you do have that connection to the material. You do have that connection to the point of view because you've worked through it yourself. But it's really hard to have that kind of dialogue alone unless you are dealing with some challenges that mean
Yeah.
you've got multiple things going on in your head. So you need something in this, age of us working remotely, and being independent. You need something that's going to be able to have that conversation with you, like you would hope a mentor or a leader um, could do. But they're just not there. And so you're able to have that experience and get that clarity independently, and which is why we find your tools so beneficial.
Yeah, and you said it well too. It's not really, and like you think AI, you think, oh, it's either a generative or productivity tool, but it is more like a coach consultant, but
Hmm.
not in the cheesy sense of some of
Yeah.
these scripted things. But it's more rooted in, like you said, living systems. There's nothing really
Yeah.
special about the AI tool. I'll be honest with you. Like it's the design thinking that drives it. That the tools define the behavior, but the source knowledge that it's given really is centered around restoring you to your own capacity for clarity and judgment, and
Yeah.
relying on your own lived context as the primary source of intelligence first. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean you can't consider other things next, but
Yeah.
say let's get these two things, your own capacity, your own context, we get those things first, and then we begin to say what else needs to be considered after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So when you've been operating in this space, like what boundaries have you found it important to maintain, and the folks that use your tools, the folks that you interact with, like what do you recommend? What's your point of view?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer to that one yet, because I
Mhm.
mean, it is still new for me in a lot of ways. I'm still learning all the different things, and
Oh.
especially with, like, we talk about the marketing piece. Like, I still probably outsource a lot of that out of my ignorance. So my AI tool's like, "What do you think?" It's like, "I don't know. You tell me."
What do you think?
Yeah, what do you think? But I guess my guiding principle personally, and when I tell like founders who use this tool, is they're building out, the whole business model from supply chain to market chain. So, it is however you use it, whatever you use it for, make sure that you can't lose your connection with your work.
Yeah.
And that means every task that you do, just because you leave, sometimes I'll get in a deep dive with ChatGPT, and it'll be, sales pipeline spreadsheet. And next thing you know, it's like a drug. It's like, I could also do this. This one shift will change your entire life. You do this and your hair will grow back. You want to know that? I'm like, yes, add it. And before you know it, I've got like 28 different sheets on the spreadsheet. I'm like, what the hell did I just make? And so before you know it, it can get carried away with you. And you can tell, like, you just kind of get caught away and it's swept up. So it's just like, don't lose your connection with what you're trying to achieve, with what you're doing,
Yeah.
and think about your thinking, pay attention to your attention, even in those moments, to say, okay, is this really getting the objective I'm trying to reach? And when is enough? And when do I need to redirect? Because if you're not clear going into it, you're not going to be any more clear going out of it, because they're just like, they want to keep you on as long as they can. They're
Yeah.
like, we got to take all the water in the world to feed our databases. We don't care.
Yeah. 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 Give us more.
Yeah.
I guess the next level of that, like from like self moderation, how should leaders be guiding their teams to use AI responsibly?
For me, I do think it is. Um, so there are lower level and lower value tasks that you can completely outsource.
Hmm.
And I think, like, let's just be blunt. We like the LinkedIn post that we've talked about.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's more about the discipline of posting every day. You don't have a lot of your thoughts. You may have a couple sentences, but you need something to build it around. Like, those are,
No, but
yeah.
if I have a week where I've blatantly just been ripping stuff off ChatGPT, I get told off by Erin. She could.
Well, that's why you got to change the whole quiet part out loud line, or not this, but that line. You're like, what are you talking about? So it's like understanding what is, first of all, like, what's appropriate to, that we say this is something we can outsourced because it's not going to have a risk of losing value.
Yeah.
It doesn't require critical thought. If it scales, it doesn't have a lot of impact if it gets wrong or goes wrong. But also I think with the actual beyond the AI agents, and that's not really the space I play in. I do go back to making sure that, are we using it to emphasize your own clarity and judgment and how it contributes to that, not how it gets the work done faster, but how did it contribute to what did you get clearer on from doing this? How did it help your judgment and your decision making in this? If you can tell me how, then you used it right. And then the context piece, like how did it help you make sense of the data you have, whether it be market data that's quantitative or qualitative data, which is with your own experience of being a part of the system that you're working in, the organization, the company. And so you bring your own perspective from your own role. And so, how did it enrich your own context as a source of knowledge? And then how to strengthen your ability to get clarity of your perspective and end up making sound judgment calls. That would be kind of like my litmus test. If people can't really say that, they said, well, I did it in 5 minutes and it used to take me 45 minutes. So look how efficient I am. I got 40 minutes of my time back. It's great. We'll use that for the rework here in a month.
Yeah, totally. And I see this and I definitely have a point of view, but I would love to get your thoughts. But I see this in, clients that are just approaching things differently as people do. I mean, everyone's got the same goal of being as efficient and effective as they possibly can be. But what role do you think that culture plays in preserving like strong decision making within an organization?
Well, from my own personal experience in a corporate world for a long while, it plays to me the most critical role because there are so many times where I knew that the decision that we were just reacting to and was really just the same decision we have done every time that produced the same results, and which is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing the same way, expecting different results. But there was this felt perception of, well, we can't slow down long enough to do something else. We can't stop the action. We got to keep producing and keep going. We have to have something to show so we can show fast deliverables by the end of this quarter. Doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. We can make up for it with fancy, as you know, fancy features at the end of it to make it look engaging, including lipstick on a pig. But it didn't really provide meaningful, effective outcomes for the business itself. And so you really have to look at, in terms of culture, what you measure matters. And so they value output and performance more than effectiveness. And I mean performance in like KPIs that were kind of driving the work versus being shaped by the work. And rewarding, again, was just cranking out numbers, and it didn't really matter if the decision was good 3 months from then because it was in the risk management space. But what's taboo, which is slowing down, thinking, or maybe questioning the system or getting more information from different stakeholders, and then what brings status. And so more of the individual high performers. I always kind of talked about it as like gamification. I don't know if you remember the movie Office Space, where they had
I've
your
never
30
seen
piece.
it, but people quote this all the time. I gotta see it.
You need to see it. It's a good depressing movie about work. But this idea, like this, all the TGI Fridays, they have these 30 pieces of flair. And you had to wear at least 8 pieces for this waitress, and said, no, you need to wear, this guy wears 30 pieces of flair. You could even wear more. But this idea of, we dress our work as like just kind of this waste stream of activity versus achievement, but if we put a lot of flair onto it, it looks fancy, it looks nice. Like you throw a Simon Sinek quote into a workshop and people are like, oh, that feels really nice. I don't know how I'm going to do that or translate into my work, but man, that felt good. And so it's like, we don't have really good, outcomes to deliver them, but we sure make it feel good and make it a pleasant experience. And so that kind of stuff was more like rewarded than stepping back and saying, okay, but how did it translate into actual behavior change or organizational effectiveness? Literally, the idea in our group was, well, that's impossible to measure. And really, it was not impossible. We just didn't start there. We started with how to make it pleasing. We didn't start with how to make it effective. There wasn't time for that. That was the idea. Yeah, I'm rambling.
So true. I wonder if there's like a in fact, there probably definitely is, and somebody much smarter than me has already said it, but the correlation between people who take a step away from like corporate America and go into their own business, I think is hugely down to performative nonsense being prioritized over results. And you mentioned it a couple of times, and I completely agree. Who is setting these arbitrary timelines that, like, we got to get done by next quarter? Why? What's going to happen? Like,
Yeah.
what is the world gonna come to an end? Like, what, like depending, pick your company of choice, but like, I've never been, in a position where I've had someone's like life in my hands. So I'm pretty sure it could have been pushed out. But the worst thing about it is, I'm not going to start ranting, Erin. Don't worry. I'm just going to say this one thing.
No,
The
you should rant. Let's do it.
the, the worst thing about it is that it's rush, rush, rush. You got to get this done. We need it right now. And then maybe a month later, oh, we deprioritize that. What?
Yes, yes. And you don't pick it up again for another like 8 months.
Like, I gotta get off this hamster wheel. It makes no sense. Like, I'm all about making things better. I'm all about, creating great experiences for people. I'm all about creating efficiencies, driving businesses to achieve their goals. I love partnering with business leaders to understand what their vision is strategically, and to help them execute against that. What I don't love is spending a week out of the quarter writing OKRs that no one cares about and that don't mean anything.
Right.
And it's sad. It's sad. Okay, rant over. But I agree. Like, I love that line. In fact, I just jotted it down. Um, what you can measure matters. It does. It does. If you can, I hate this phrase because I hear it way too much, but if you can like move the needle on something, like you've made an impact. If you can push something forward in a better direction, you've made an impact on that
Yeah.
piece.
And I think too that, the gift of AI should be with its ability to process information faster for us and execute some tasks faster for us. We should now have the time to make right decisions versus reactive decisions.
Yes.
And I think that's if we use AI just to do the same thing faster, because there's this false sense of urgency and speed, even greater now. Like we can just basically scale the wrong thing instead of realizing that it gives us back the gift of time and what it looks like to be human at work again gets to be redefined, and it's more about our perspective and our judgment, the living part, the HI, the human intelligent piece of it that we get to reclaim about what is it that I can bring that AI can't do.
Yeah.
And that sense of what before that insignificance creeps in, it's reclaiming that sense of this is what I bring to the table, versus what anything else can do.
And we've definitely turned a corner when you hear people talking about it now. It's less so about, okay, the goal is that we eliminate all the jobs and that we do things, everything AI. Like, we don't need people anymore. People like I don't people are too slow. It is more the ability to think critically has become more valuable in in the in this like AI augmented world that we live in. I just I wonder how long it's going to take to find the right balance. Um, and because I don't think we're close right now.
Yeah.
We got a ways to go, and I wonder what it will take to keep that balance steady and in the right way. I don't know. I'm curious about your perspective. People say it's valuable, but you still see companies um, doing the same interesting things with timelines and how they prioritize the measure of success of like even AI adoption itself, measuring how long somebody spent on ChatGPT. I mean, what does that tell you? I, I don't know.
Yeah. It becomes another busy metric where you have to clock, like you're clocking in and out of AI now. And Yeah, that's when we usually kind of tack on AI to organizational systems and structures and procedures without reimagining what they could look like now with these extra tools that and that, whether it be adding the governance piece too with it, that, what's AI's domain, our domain, how we use it. And then to your point of like tacking it on to what's already there, it just becomes, it's the word, the phrase I love, like progressive accumulation. It's just like all we feel like we need to do is to get better, is just keep adding on more and more and more. And AI just kind of adds to that, or at least our use of AI adds to that now. But I see it coming, emerging a lot, I guess, in certain circles where they're thinking hard about how do we reimagine work and actually think less about procedure and more about dynamic processes that ebb and flow, and kind of this role to role matching where you are reorganizing workflows and partnerships among people and AI systems to accommodate the unique project or plan that you're trying to execute at that time. And so I think that that's starting to happen more commonly, but still early.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's funny because I get to hop in and out of all different companies and different cultures, different ways of embracing it, and it really does vary from, some companies that are just not interested in it at all, really. They're maybe a more longer standing company that does something service oriented, and they're just, they're happy with the way they do things. And that's, they're probably not going to be, breaking $1 billion or, doing anything that changes the world, but they're doing work and they're fine. And then the other end of the scale is like everything has to run through a tool that's AI adjacent to the point that it's like, wait, this process seems to take longer now that we've implemented this tool over it. Like, is this what we were going for? Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I confused.
Yeah, it's like there's a difference between AI adoption and AI maturity or maturation. That's always a weird word to say out loud to me. But like like we celebrate how much we have adopted AI into our work, but we don't talk about how that's matured our work or how we've matured our use of AI in our work. We just want to increase the adoption rates across the scope of it all.
Yeah, and I personally don't think you should measure AI adoption, utilization at all. Measure the outputs. Measure, you have a function that is responsible for X workload. Like, what efficiencies have they been able to build into their processes using AI, of course, but don't put the prize on just implementing a tool. Put the prize on the results. Like
Yes.
that's what makes sense to me. Okay, right. Erin, are you still there, Erin?
Yeah, I'm just been reflecting, and I think I swing back and forth between this sort of the worry about what the future could be and a lot of hope for what the future can be. And I'm particularly struck, Mike, by the part of the conversation earlier where we were discussing this transition to a less human feeling
Yeah.
and less connected feeling world at work has been happening for a long time. And I'll digress into a quick just example that rushed into my mind as you all were talking about that. I was working for a leader once that was very results and pace oriented, and introduced this concept of an S-bar communication framework. Mike, are you familiar with it?
No. Well, wait, wait,
So
wait. You about the chart or the graph? The S
Yeah,
curve.
there's probably some sort of a graph that goes with that. I
Okay.
wasn't paying attention when it was introduced because I think
Yeah.
um,
Well, then I'll just say no. I'm not, Aaron. Go on.
well, so what it is, I just Googled it, situation background assessment recommendation. And it was introduced under this pretense of, I don't have time for sitting down and problem solving with any of you people. And so what you
Ooh.
need to do is sit down with this worksheet, which is this communication framework, and fill it out. And only after you've filled it out and worked through these reflection questions can you come to me and have a conversation about it. And I remember sitting in that quote unquote workshop and going, I'm not doing this. ridiculous. If you don't want me to come to you, I just won't come to you. But I think about just the application of tools like yours, and not only being able to support people through their thinking structures, but creating efficiencies that then in turn create more time for people to hopefully behave in a more human and connected way at work.
Yeah. Well, first, I want to know that worksheet because I want to give it to my 4 kids and say, before you come to me and tell on your siblings, fill this out. And then that will lose their interest right there because they don't have a work ethic. But love you guys. No. So, but yeah, you're talking about like this sense of insignificance angst, where what's the meaning to my work? What's the relevance? And essentially, if AI can do this, whatever this is, what's my role?
Yeah.
And we assume that if AI can do this, we don't have a role because our role has been predominantly, looked at KPIs and productivity. That thankfully, a lot can be changed and manipulated by that for the good.
Mhm.
But what things like my tool, and I think there's going to be others, and I'm sure there may be. I don't know. I like to think not, but I hope so at the same time. But they say,
I don't think so.
you don't think so? Well, it says, since I can do this, what's my role? And that is really, I think, with this really the design thinking that is embedded in this tool helps you recover that what's my role for this unique time, this unique place, and this unique set of circumstances. And for us to find that unique role for time, place, and circumstance, we have to renew, which regenerative design thinking is the RDT, which is to renew, bring back to life our ways of thinking and working for each new moment that we find ourselves in. And so I think that's the question that we should have been asking a lot longer before AI emerges. What's my role in this since things have changed? Because things change where we work with people. People are living systems. We're all in things. So I think it's finally maybe hopefully forcing us to ask these questions that we should have been asking for a while. But I think what the tool helps us do now more than ever with that insignificance angst, helps us reclaim our own role in whatever process that we're in, whatever moment we're in with our stakeholders, whatever value we're trying to create. It helps you feel empowered again with that.
I love
What a
that.
beautiful way to wrap up the conversation.
Yes, yes. I think there's so much hope and excitement around that perspective, Mike. So thank you so much for sharing it with us today. We're definitely looking forward to continuing to follow the evolution of your company, of your tool, and just can't wait to see how you and your team take off here. And so a couple of just quick questions for you before we call it a night. Where can listeners follow your work?
Yes, so you can go to regendesignlabs.com as a website. You can just do a start here form and we can get connected directly through that. And from there, we can do, if you're interested in the tool itself, I'm excited about the 60-day pilot lab where you actually get to take a cross-functional set of team between 8 and 15 leaders across your organization. And you get to apply this tool to develop work intelligence, which is really about paying attention to your attention and thinking about your thinking as it ties to actual decision-making quality improvements and stakeholder mindset to deepen the value for everyone. And then really, the kind of value creation paradigms out there of beyond this, that one-off transactional quick win we go for, like how do we protect value and so on and so forth. So it allows you to, like a 2 months of just experimenting with this tool to help learn more about yourself and your company and some strategic next moves. But also just LinkedIn, you can just go look me up at Michael Reading or /Michael P. Reading is a good way to follow the material.
It's spelled like Reading.
Yeah, you know what my idea is, because we are English, I think it probably was Reading, and then somewhere along the way we got too American and we're like, that looks like reading. So we just went with it.
Probably. We'll also share some information on the Strativus page about that too. It's a great opportunity. We are very comfortable in LLMs and we get the same kind of quick responses that you need for, something that's like, okay, what is the answer to this? Or how many zeros are in a million? Just kidding. But like, but Mike's tool will help you think through your own thoughts and help you discern what you're really trying to get to in a way that will make you feel really good and really connected to the end result. So we'll definitely share information on that.
And should plug you too. If you do go to the website now, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but I updated. There is a quick demo that I did a screen recording of embedded on the homepage, so people can get a sense in real time of how it welcomes you, invites you to different ways of thinking about your work through decisions, relationships, conflict, confusion, and then I just kind of put in a scenario case study to let it give an initial reply and how it would launch into deeper conversation. So you don't have to imagine it. You actually go to the website and look at it in action.
That's awesome.
Very cool. And as I understand, Mike, you have a promotional offer that you're sharing with Strativus listeners. How can listeners access that?
Yeah, well, first, they got to give it to you. No. Once they reach out, I mean, if you mention Strativus, you automatically get from an individual account user, which we tend to do more companies of 10 plus, but you've got 30% off. So for an annual or for a monthly membership, it's $129. But if you are part of Strativus community, you get referrals from Strativus. Then we go through from $129 to $99 a month. And it's just by mentioning you guys' name. And
special.
Yes, that is all it takes. And complimenting your LinkedIn content, of course, Amy.
Erin's sort of like, I write most of that. She just does pictures.
Yeah, I know. Your AI swap will say it's the best swap in the world. Yeah. I'm joking.
Oh, so good to talk to you again, Mike. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great night.
You too.